Once upon a time, Wuthering Heights was occupied by a Mr. Earnshaw, his teenage son Hindley, and his daughter Catherine. On a trip to Liverpool, Mr. Earnshaw encountered a homeless boy. He adopted the boy and named him Heathcliff. Hindley became jealous of Heathcliff for supplanting him in his father's affections. Catherine and Heathcliff became friends and spent hours each day playing on the moors. Some years later, Mr. Earnshaw died, and his son Hindley became the master of Wuthering Heights. He allowed Heathcliff to stay, but only as a servant. One day, Heathcliff and Catherine walked to Thrushcross Grange to spy on the Lintons who were living there. After being discovered, they tried to run away, but were caught. Catherine was injured by the Lintons' dog and taken into the house to recuperate, while Heathcliff was sent home. Catherine stayed with the Lintons in their home, and was greatly influenced by their fine appearance and genteel manners. When she returned to Wuthering Heights, her appearance and manners had become more ladylike, and she even now sometimes laughs at Heathcliff's unkempt appearance.
Kathy, are you busy this afternoon? Are you going anywhere?
No. It is raining.
Nobody coming here, I hope?
Not that I know of. But you should be in the field now, Heathcliff. It's an hour past dinner time. I thought you were gone.
Hindley does not often free us from his accursed presence. I'll work no more for him today. I'll stay with you.
Oh, but Joseph will tell. You'd better go.
Joseph is busy loading lime on the further side of Penistone Crag. It will take him till dark, and he'll never know.
Isabella and Edgar Linton talked of calling this afternoon. As it rains, I hardly expect them, but they may come. And if they do, you run the risk of being scolded for no good.
Order Ellen to say you're engaged. Kathy, don't turn me out for those pitiful, silly friends of yours.
I'm on the point sometimes of complaining that they... But I won't.
That they what? Oh, Nellie, you've combed my hair much out of curl. That's enough. Let me alone. What were you on the point of complaining about, Heathcliff?
Nothing. Only look at the almanac on that wall there. The crosses are for the evenings you spent with the Lintons. The dots, those spent with me. Do you see? I've marked every day.
Yes, very foolish, as if I took notice. And where's the sense in that?
To show that I do take notice.
And should I always be sitting with you? What good do I get? What do you talk about? You might be dumb or a baby for anything you say to amuse me, or for anything you do either.
You never told me that I talked too little, or that you disliked my company, Kathy.
It's no company at all when people know nothing and say nothing.
At present, convey yourself and him away.
And hark you, Heathcliff, clear you two quite from my reach and hearing. I wouldn't murder you tonight, unless perhaps I set the house on fire, and that's as my fancy goes.
Nay, don't, Mr. Hindley, do take warning. Have mercy on this unfortunate boy if you care nothing for yourself.
Anyone will do better for him than I shall.
Have mercy on your soul!
Not I.
I shall have great pleasure in sending it to perdition to punish its maker. Here's to its hearty damnation!
It's a pity he cannot kill himself with drink. He's doing his very utmost, but his constitution defies him. Mr. Kenneth says he'll wager his prize mare that he'll outlive any man this side of Gimmerton, and go to the grave a hoary sinner. Unless some happy chance out of the common course befall him.
Are you alone, Nellie?
Yes, miss.
Where's Heathcliff?
About his work in the stable.
Oh dear, I'm very unhappy.
A pity. You're hard to please. So many friends and so few cares, and can't make yourself happy.
Nellie, will you keep a secret for me?
Is it worth keeping?
Yes, and it worries me, and I must let it out. I want to know what I should do. Today, Edgar Linton has asked me to marry him, and I've given him an answer. Now, before I tell you whether it was a consent or denial, you tell me which it ought to have been.
Really, Miss Catherine, how can I know? To be sure, given the exhibition you performed in his presence this afternoon, it might be wise to refuse him. Since he asked you after that, he must either be hopelessly stupid or a venturesome fool.
If you talk so, I won't tell you anymore. I've accepted him, Nellie. Be quick and say whether I was wrong.
You've accepted him. Well, what good is it in discussing the matter? You've pledged your word you cannot retract.
But say whether I should have done so. Do.
There are many things to be considered before such a question can be answered properly. First and foremost, you love Edgar.
Who can help it? Of course I do.
Why do you love him, Miss Cathy?
Nonsense. I do. That's sufficient.
By no means. You must say why.
Well, because he's handsome and pleasant to be with.
Bad.
And because he's young and cheerful.
Bad still.
And because he loves me.
Indifferent coming there.
And he shall be rich, and I shall be the greatest woman in the neighborhood. And I shall be proud of having such a husband.
Worst of all. And now, say how you love him.
I love the ground under his feet, and the air over his head, and everything he touches and every word he says. I love all of his looks and all of his actions and him entirely and altogether. There now.
And why?
Nay, you are making a jest of it. It's exceedingly ill-natured. It's no jest to me.
I'm very far from jesting, Miss Catherine. You love Edgar because he is young and handsome and cheerful and rich, and loves you The last goes for nothing. You would love him without that, probably, and with it you wouldn't, unless he possessed the 4 former attractions.
No, to be sure not. I should only pity him, hate him, perhaps, if he were ugly and a clown.
But there are several other handsome, rich young men, handsomer possibly, and richer than he is. What should hinder you from loving them?
If there be any, they are out of my way. I've seen none like Edgar.
You may see some, and he won't always be handsome and young, and he may not always be rich.
He is now, and I have only to do with the present. I wish you would speak rationally.
Well, that settles it. If you have only to do with the present, marry Mr. Linton.
I don't want your permission for that. I shall marry him. And yet, you haven't told me whether I'm right.
Perfectly right. If people be right to marry only for the present. And now, let us hear what you are so unhappy about. Your brother will be happy. The old lady and gentleman will not object, I think. You will escape a disorderly, comfortless home into a wealthy, respectable one. And you love Edgar, and Edgar loves you. All seems smooth and easy. Where is the obstacle?
Here and here. In whatever place the soul lives. In my heart and in my soul, I'm convinced that I'm wrong.
That's very strange. I cannot make it out.
It's my secret, but if you'll not mock at me, I'll try to explain it. I can't do it distinctly, but I'll give you a feeling of how I feel. Nellie, do you never dream queer dreams?
Yes, now and then.
And so do I. I've dreamt in my life dreams that have stayed with me ever after and changed my ideas. They've gone through and through me like wine through water and altered the color of my mind. And this is one. I'm going to tell it, but take care not to smile at any part of it.
Oh, don't, Miss Catherine. We're dismal enough without conjuring up ghosts and visions to perplex us. Come, come, be merry and like yourself.
Nellie, I shall oblige you to listen. It's not long, and I have no power to be merry tonight.
I won't hear it. I won't hear it.
If I were in heaven, Nellie, I should be extremely miserable.
Because you're not fit to go there. All sinners would be miserable in heaven.
I dreamt once that I was there.
I tell you, Miss Catherine, I won't hearken to your dreams. I'll go to bed.
This is nothing. I was only going to say that heaven did not seem to be my home. And I broke my heart with sobbing to come back to earth. And the angels were so mad that they flung me onto the middle of the heath on top of Wuthering Heights, where I awoke sobbing for joy. That should do to explain my secret as well as the other one. I have no more business to marry Edgar Linton than I have to be in heaven. And if the wicked man in there had not brought Heathcliff so low, I shouldn't have thought of it. It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now. So, he shall never know that I love him. And not because he's handsome, Nellie, but because he's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. Linton's is as different as moonbeam from lightning or frost from fire.
Hush.
Why?
I'm not sure that Heathcliff are out at the door at this moment.
Oh, Heathcliff couldn't hear me at the door. He has no notion of those things. Has he? He doesn't know what being in love is.
I see no reason that he should not know as well as you do. And if you are his choice, he will be the most unfortunate creature ever born. When you become Mrs. Linton, he loses friend and love and all. Have you considered how you'll bear the separation? And he'll bear being quite deserted in the world, because Miss Catherine...
He quite deserted? We separated? Who is to separate us, pray? They'll meet the fate of Milo. Not as long as I live, Ellen, for no mortal creature. Every Linton on the face of the earth might melt into nothing before I could consent to forsake Heathcliff. Oh, that's not what I intend, that's not what I mean. I should not be Mrs. Linton were such a price demanded. He'll be as much to me as he has been his whole life. Edgar must shake off his antipathy for him and tolerate him at least. He will once he learns my true feelings toward him. Ellen, I see now you think me a selfish wretch, but did it never strike you that if I should marry Heathcliff, we would be beggars? Whereas if I marry Linton, I can aid Heathcliff to rise and place him out of my brother's power.
With your husband's money, Miss Catherine, you'll find him not so pliable as you calculate upon. And though I'm hardly a judge, I think that is the worst motive yet you've given for being the wife of young Linton.
It is not. It is the best. The rest were for the satisfaction of my whims, and for Edgar's sake, too, to satisfy him. This is for the one who comprehends in his person my feelings toward Edgar and myself. I cannot express it, but surely you and everybody have a notion that there is, or should be, an existence of yours beyond you. My greatest miseries in life have been Heathcliff's miseries, and I've felt and watched each of them from the very beginning. What were the purpose of my creation if I were entirely contained here? If all else perished and Heathcliff remained, I should still continue to be. But if all else remained and Heathcliff were annihilated, the world would turn to a mighty stranger. I would no longer be a part of it. My love for Linton is like the foliage in the woods. Time will change it, I'm well aware, like winter changes the trees. But my love for Heathcliff is like the eternal rocks beneath. Nellie, I am Heathcliff. He's always on my mind, and not as a pleasure anymore as I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being. So don't talk of our separation anymore. It's impracticable, and
If I am to make any sense of your nonsense, miss, it only goes to convince me that you are ignorant of the duties you undertake in marrying, or else you are a wicked, unprincipled girl. But trouble me no more with secrets. I'll not promise to keep them.
you'll keep that?
No, I'll not promise.